Jones, the Bliss Facilitator. Anna and I have been friends for what, 2 years, 2.5?
I don't know. Feels like a lifetime.
Feels like forever. We're just gonna go with a lifetime and previous
Yeah.
lifetimes. We're gonna subscribe to that.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to go live together, and Anna came up with some brilliant topics that we just kind of fed off each other on, and we just want to address this here in this live, and would love to hear what comes up for you as well, or what gets activated as we talk about this, because we just want to have a really raw discussion about the dynamics of the personal development industry, and the areas that we see have really kind of shifted over the course of the last handful of years, I guess, in
Yeah.
this industry, and where we find ourselves now within our own journey and helping our own clients. And I think one of the topics that comes up that you had brought forward, Anna, was this concept of, service providers really being considerate of somebody's emotional state, emotional style, trauma, whether that's current or historical, and nervous system regulation. So, what was coming up for you around this that kind of activated that topic for you?
So, first of all, thank you for having me on here.
You're
Um,
welcome.
these conversations, because I feel they're just like an extension of what you and I have privately, and then we just bring them forward. Um, I think for me, I've just gotten, and we've talked about this, right? I think I'm just so over those like clickbaits, just like over those like viral hooks, and just like like if somebody's addressing my trauma instead of my potential, I would rather just skip through that. I would
Yep.
rather swipe through that, because I feel like that's such an old tactic that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember when I was just entering the coaching space, that was that was just not it.
Hmm.
That really wasn't it. I mean, I entered it like in 2012. So this was before it was trendy, before it was actually like my mom even told me like, I don't think you should do it, it's kind of skeptical and this and that, and then she ended up taking her own coaching certificate, which is really funny. But I just think that when we can talk a lot about more about like intuitive decision making
Hmm.
and how to make decisions from your center and from that space of power, instead of giving away you know just this, yeah, our power to other people who appear to know more just because they have a really great copywriter.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's, there's a couple things that come up for me around this. I mean, one is obviously, yes, intuitive discernment, which comes from the body, particularly. And we can say, well, all right, my nervous system might be dysregulated, and therefore I need this person to help guide me into regulation. Or is it that you're at a space of, dysregulation that doesn't allow you to have the discernment to make that choice right now? Also,
Yeah.
right? There's that. But I also think that we can really get into this space of, well, this person, it feels hierarchical. This person knows more than I do, rather than, no, I actually know a hell of a lot about myself and my own field.
Hmm.
And I don't choose anyone anymore to hire, if I hire anybody, that I would not want to sit down and hang out with and spend like 4 days with on a retreat. Because for
Ah,
me, it's like, I get it. I see you've got like your BMW and your fucking Fendi bags and all this shit. And that's great. Like everybody's got their own thing. But like for me, it's like I just need to sit down with somebody that I know that we would just be kindred spirits, right? Cut from the same cloth, and just I can be totally raw and they can be totally raw. And it's through that authentic discussion that both of us come fully forward. And in both of us coming fully forward, that's where the magic happens. Nobody holds some kind of thing that I need to access to get to a certain point.
exactly. Yeah, I love that. And you said something so important that I also, it's a non-negotiable for me. Like, if you're gonna, like when somebody has like their barrier up, whether it's a therapist or a coach or whatever, it's really hard for me to want to continue to work with them, just because I want us to be like, yeah, like you said, kindred spirits. Like, I get it. You're going to be my coach, my therapist, whatever. But I also want to feel this closeness to you. Like, I'm sharing really deep, dark parts of myself that
Mhm.
probably a lot of people don't fucking know. And you're saying goodbye to me with a handshake or like
Mhm.
barely a touch. Like, I know that a lot of people might disagree and they're like, oh, they're trying to keep it professional. But if you're my therapist or you're my coach, we're meeting in person and I don't get a fucking hug from you after I leave, I'm not really coming back. Like that's just me. And I think that we have to be really um just clear and really honest with ourselves, like what are my standards when I'm working with someone, right? Like what
Mhm.
what what do I desire? What type of support do I want? And I think
Yeah.
that the people that we work with, they're people who are just, they like to be called out on their shit,
Yeah.
after everything has been processed. We're not going to like call them out while they're in it. But I think that they desire accountability. They want responsibility. They want growth. They're constantly expanding. And so, they're not looking for judgment and projection. They're looking more for like support and be like, hey, am I lying to myself? If so, let me know because I can handle it.
Well, see, and I think that's exactly the point. It's allowing whatever is coming through the person, right? To be coming forward. So it's coming forward and then we get to be as coaches, as healers, as a partner in this with them, to just be with the energy of what's coming forward and saying, "Okay, let's just give this space. Like we're giving it space right now. Let's be
Mm.
with it." And allow it to move, allow it to inform us as to what is meant to come forward in terms of clarity or movement or whatever in your field. And I think that what I see a lot of the times are these ways that people work, these ways that people view things and make sense of things in a structure, right?
Mhm.
And then they're searching for it within the person. They're
Yeah.
searching for it or they're extracting it or pulling it forward. And it's like, let's offer the other person sovereignty for whatever's coming forward for them, whatever's coming forward in their body, rather than let me search for something so that we can feel accomplished and move in a direction. And this even happens with people who work with channeling spirit and connecting to people's souls. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to access your soul and tell you what's coming forward through your soul, right? Rather than allowing what's coming forward in the person to arise and just being present with that and giving it some space.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
That is so true because it's very easy to go in with an agenda that
Mhm.
will feed the ego.
Mhm.
And I think that there is still a lot of that, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
when in reality, I mean, I have been in sessions where I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. And like,
Mhm.
it's so beautiful how, like, last 5 minutes, there's just this beautiful, like, wrapping up that happens that I
Mhm.
truly believe is like divinity spirit coming in to help this beautiful closure. Because sometimes I know I felt in sessions where I'm just like, wow, like, this is a point where I really don't like Anna, like the ego, the person that
Yeah.
is here. I don't really have much to offer. So it's almost
Mhm.
like I allow this power, this guidance that's bigger than me to just come through. And
Mhm.
it beautifully wraps up. So I love that you said that because yeah, it's like it's not our job isn't to fix anyone. Our job isn't
Right.
to be like, oh, you know what, this is wrong with you. Let's start doing this. It's like, how can you love yourself more and more and more, which is more of like the shadow work, right? Because
Mhm.
we have all these things, the shame, the guilt, the, I mean, you name it, different parts of us. And then, like, can we continue to love ourselves deeper and deeper and deeper as we move forward, knowing that this is all part of the human experience?
Well, and just be with it, right? Like just hold it in the space between you with
Yeah.
compassion. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can do for people, whether we're coaches, healers, whether we're just talking to our loved ones, right? Is just thank you. Like I am in deep gratitude that you feel safe enough in this space to bring forward something that is has been stagnant within you or agitating within you, and you're bringing it forward in this space. And there's a lot of times that we don't feel comfortable or sometimes worthy enough, especially as you're earlier on in your journey, to hold compassion for yourself when shame and
Mm,
guilt and these deep seated feelings come forward. And so it's just about being like, it's okay. Like, you're allowed to feel shame. That's
yeah.
totally normal. Let's see it. Let's be with it. Let's not reject it because it's a part of
Yeah.
you. I want all of you. Bring
Yeah.
me all of you because when all of you is welcomed, all of you is invited, all of you is seen, it softens and you're like, oh, I don't have to hold it all together anymore. Right.
Yeah. That's really beautiful and that's really magical because, you know, there's so much stigma. And
Mm.
I don't know if you experienced this, but I remember when when I was going through something and I would there are very few friends that can actually hold space like you hold
Yeah.
space, you know?
Mhm.
And I know the dynamic that you and I have is so sacred to me and so beautiful because I can just vomit what I'm feeling in one moment. And the next day, I know that you're not gonna hold me up against that, you know, that
Right.
same word vomit that I shared. It was just like, "Hey, how's it going today? What, are you still
Mhm.
in it or, are you out?" Because we're amazing transmuters and we,
Mhm.
we shift out of our own stuff very quickly. But I remember saying like, "I feel sad," or "I feel angry," and people were so quick to be like, "Oh no, don't be sad. Oh no, don't be angry."
Mhm.
And it was this programming that I realized that I picked up too. I think we all do. It's just part of our conditioning that we just don't like for people to be sad or to be angry because we think that it's something that we're responsible for fixing because they're around us. But I found that, whenever I talk to people that, you know, I can just say that I'm sad or I can say that I'm angry, that alone, just exposing that, bringing that emotion to light is so liberating and it
Yeah.
brings so much lightness and ease and it's just so beautiful and I
Yeah.
love that we get to be, doing this together and separately of course,
Mhm.
but because I feel it's such a big difference instead of just telling people like, yeah, that's wrong. You shouldn't feel ashamed or you shouldn't feel guilt.
Or this is what you need to do to get out of it.
Yeah.
Rather than we're not here to dismiss or get rid of physical or emotional sensation that we feel is uncomfortable. We're here to welcome it and invite it when it shows itself, be like, it's like you're allowed to be here. Like you're welcome here,
Yeah.
and we can spend time in presence. And I think that's the key is that when you were talking about building intuitive discernment earlier, it's like we talk about building the intuitive muscle, and it's really just developing stamina for
Mm,
being in presence with whatever we notice as discomfort or label as discomfort in the body, and building the stamina and the trust and the anchoring in the fact that this is just energetic movement, right? And this is just a natural part of being a an empathic, sensitive, open, large-hearted human, right?
mhm.
That is going to feel. And when you feel more, your awareness gets heightened, right? Your awareness gets heightened. And these are the emotions and the sensations that come forward to show us where we are meant to be in our highest joy.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so beautifully and well put. I love that because I mean, sometimes I'm still blown away that even with all the information and with all the great facilitators, coaches, therapists that are out there, there's still people that are still on this wave of like, I gotta be high vibe all the time.
Mm,
And that just, oh my gosh, that is just still very confusing to me and very I just find it very interesting, right? That instead
mhm,
of like, okay, let's start embracing this, it's like, no, there's still people that are falling into this propaganda of like, anti-aging, which there's no
mhm,
such thing, right? We're all gonna age, we're all gonna, eventually leave this plane. So it's like, what can I do to be the healthiest? What can I do to, live my life to the fullest if that's what I desire, right? So instead of going more towards like the cult, the
mhm,
giving your power away type of energy,
mhm,
why not like start listening to myself? And there's still so much I think stigma around this, which I find
mm,
so fascinating, because I hang around people like you
mhm,
and like me. So when I encounter somebody who is still living their life off of medical studies or, what my doctor said, and they're not really connecting into their body, I'm like, wow, like this is still a thing, right? There's still so
mhm.
much fear and anxiety and like not willing to take responsibility for what we know is true, that I'd rather continue to what's the word, outsource my power.
Mm. Yeah, 800%. I was just talking to somebody this morning about somebody in my life who just continues to outsource their joy to me, and I'm just like, "Listen, I love you, but I I want you to extract this from yourself, like, you've got this within, right?" And it's it's that is one piece, and I think the other piece is recognizing how much you are a powerful creator of your own experience. I don't care where you're getting information from,
Yeah.
whether it's a doctor, whether it's God, whether it's your mother or your partner or your closest loved one, right? Like you're bringing this in and it's all information for your own discernment to just sit with and be with and
Mhm.
allow what feels natural to come forward within you and that you are your best author of your experience and yes you can bring in these other threads as like nourishment and as layers of inspiration to be
Mhm.
with but
Yeah.
it's really it's you get to orchestrate this and it was funny because I was talking to somebody the other day who said I always said I'm an open book. Like I've always been so open. And you've shown me how much more open I can be, how much more of myself I can be. And I think that's what I would encourage people in this life too, is just to deepen your understanding of truth. Like deepen your understanding of your own truth and your own level of openness that has nothing to do with what's coming at you outside of you and what kind of feedback you're getting. What's coming up for you around this, Anna?
No, I love that. I mean, I mean, you and I are just so aligned in so many ways, and it brought me the it brought me back to the story of when I finished my own coaching program with this coach that I hired, and then I was like, oh, I'm expanding. I need someone that I can have like on call or whatever. And so I went to this therapist that I told you
Mhm.
about, right? And I was like, there's some stuff that's coming up. I'm going through this expansion, and it was really interesting because what life showed me was that here was this person who was trying to project her shit onto me.
Yep.
uh, I thought was quite manipulative,
Mhm.
the approach that she had, because of just the questions that she asked. And I was like, this is what I'm looking for, and you just don't offer it. So it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. It's just we are not compatible. And I'm looking for a much more flexible, much more, just like expanding experience. And I'm not going back into my childhood because I already did all that shit. Like I
Mhm.
years digging up trauma and all that stuff. And the truth is, if you are in that hole of digging up trauma, it is endless. It is
Oh,
en-
yeah.
and it's just like, you know what? Let the trauma come up when it needs to come up. Once you have the tools, once you've developed, the skills, the resource, and you have the resources. But it's like going back there willingly is so painful. And I
Mhm.
really feel that it doesn't let you move forward in life because you can't really enjoy when you're digging up your shit all the time. And you
Correct.
always, that stuff is always going to be there. So I think that, yeah, go ahead.
It's recognizing that it's gonna be there and knowing that you can hold compassionate space for it, Obviously, the body keeps the score, which is a
Yeah.
nice book by Bessel van der Kolk, right? If you wanna read about trauma being housed in the body, but yes, the body will hold codes of that, which means that doesn't mean it's not going to come forward. It means, being in a space of compassionate receptivity around that and
Yeah.
and knowing with confidence that it will move, knowing that it is not your life sentence to be in that space. And so I think it's acknowledging that and being appreciative of also where is the person with their trauma? Because like I know with me, like I had told you, I had hired a coach at the beginning of the year for a few months. And it was interesting because it was like, yes, there were some things that kind of came up from past lives like here and there as we were doing some work. But then it was this going, like intentionally going in to excavate things to bring forward to do work. And I was like, that's not where I am though. Right. Like I've been doing this work for 35 years. I've been doing this work for 35 years. So I'm like, I'm in a place where I understand the context and I have deep reverence for it. And I recognize when it comes forward and the compassion that I meet it with and I am not in a place where I desire to go back to it. And so I think what you bring forward is beautiful because what it is it's a highlight of how sacred your no is, just
Mhm.
as much as your yes, right? Like your sacred no around this is what I'm looking for. And there might be something a little bit off, but even something a little bit off is okay for you to say no to
Yeah.
because you want to be in a place where you can be fully raw,
Yeah.
fully you, and dump all of you on the table and be like, I've been seen, I feel safe, I feel loved, and I feel like a more cohesive version of myself going forward. And not just because this person's given me a band aid, but
Yeah.
because they've invited me into catalyzing this for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really beautiful when you can find someone like that who is just
Mhm.
like gonna show up and just, accept you and not judge you and not be like, yeah, you should have done this or oh, okay. Or it's I mean, you can feel it. Even if they don't say it, you can feel it, right?
Mhm.
And I was actually reading, I didn't realize that I had these flashcards. And on one of these flashcards that I have next to my bed, there was this note. It was just this beautiful note from one of my clients, and she said when she signed off, she put love, and then in parentheses, in the new way that you've taught me how to love. And
Oh,
that was so beautiful. That was so beautiful and so profound because for someone to reflect back to me like, wow, you are the only person that has believed in me. I don't know what I would have done, all these things. I was like, man, like, yeah, like that, isn't this so beautiful? Like, and a lot of times what we were doing in those sessions, it was like, there was yawning,
yeah.
crying or whatever it was. It's not a lot of talking a lot of the time. So yeah, and even like for us right now having this live, we're not coming on here saying like, yeah, we're a bunch of know-it-alls, but just sharing our experience, which hopefully will ignite you to, or will invite you to connect with that fire, with that desire inside of you to wake up and explore your own life and what it is about. Who do you want to have in your life, including the people that are supporting you?
Mhm. Yeah, and I think realizing that there's no rush, that there's 7 billion people on this planet, and I promise there's somebody that completely sees, holds, and understands you with
Yeah,
every single aspect of who you are,
yeah,
and I think it's really beautiful um, to be able to bring all of you forward in it all layers,
mm,
all of my human, which means all my physical sensation, all my emotion, in addition to all my energy, all my soul, right?
yeah,
Because it's about, like, I was just writing a post about this morning. um, Stay tuned, it'll be posted at some point. Who knows when I'll finish it. But yeah, it was around like peace, right? And finding peace and how every single person has a different definition of peace. And so it's like when you're with somebody, it's meeting someone with where they are. Like I was just saying before, like what is their context of trauma? Where are they in their process with it,
yeah,
right? Some people could be just starting out. And if they're just starting out, then yes, we do want to attend to the trauma and be with that narrative temporarily and give it the space it needs, right? And so I think but it's also realizing that the way that you express and the way that you move energy and emotion through you and physical sensation is different than the next person. And
yeah,
so you get to find, some people find peace running a marathon. Some people find peace at a huge freaking concert outside with thousands of people. And some
yeah,
people find peace in deep meditation in the woods. And so I think it's just that's where that's where your honoring comes in, to listen to your body, to listen to your, like you said, that desire inside of you and the sensations and cues that come forward, and
mm,
allow them to invite you. That's the data, right? Like that's the data as to what makes you feel your best and what's drawing you into your highest and best.
yeah, yeah. And there are several things that come up for me, because yeah, the first one, the trauma piece. Yeah, if you are just starting off and you're realizing, I hadn't really addressed, I hadn't really seen, I hadn't exposed this trauma. Yes, absolutely. That is really, really, really important. If
Yeah.
you've been doing trauma work for years now, then I highly recommend you give yourself a break because trauma work is heavy and it's addictive, and
Yeah.
it'll think that there's something wrong with you. But the reality is, we all have trauma, and it's really good to be aware of it and choose to live your life regardless of the trauma that you've experienced. Because a lot of people will use it as excuse, like, well,
Mm,
so this is impossible for me. So don't let your trauma be your excuse, because that can happen a lot of times. We tend to use it as like, oh well, this happened for me, so this isn't available to you. Everything is available to you if you decided it's available to you. And then the other piece that I wanted to say was, when you were saying peace, like not the peace, but the peace. Um, I heard this reel about this celebrity talking about, she's like, I don't know about love, but I know about friendships. And I was like, we still to this day have people talking about love only as romantic love.
yeah,
And love is so much more than what we experience in our romantic relationships. So
yeah.
I think that kind of like goes with the piece, what you were saying. Like, what is love? What is your definition of love? And how do you want to be loved? And how you want to love, is completely different to how even your partner wants to love and
Mhm.
be loved. So definitely take some time and to dive into this part of you and just be like, what do I think about this? What resonates and what doesn't?
And what you're bringing forward too, I think really highlights the topic of this live as well, which is finding somebody like a helper, whoever's helping you, even if it's just a loved one, who is able to invite you into that with curiosity. And I think that's really what it's about is curiosity. I think there's been so much push. I remember when I first entered the coaching industry, because I've been a therapist for 20 years. So when I first entered the coaching industry and had all these people swarming at me like, oh my gosh, you can make so much money and you got to switch from one-on-one to a group platform and da 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 because you leverage more and you can help more people. And I don't disagree with that to a degree, but I also think that depending on how it's structured and depending on how it's approached and who's running it, it can also really neglect these individual nuances that yes, we want people to take responsibility for, but also may need some support to get to the point that they can take responsibility for that in full, right?
Yeah,
And so yes, there's coaches at all and helpers and healers at all levels of this journey. So, but I think that it's really important to keep on that air of curiosity for yourself and for the people that you're supporting and for the people that are supporting you, to be
yeah,
curious about not just making blanket statements about love like you said, or about peace, or about nervous system regulation or trauma resolution or things like that, and just getting really curious. Where are you with it? What is coming up in your body around it? How does this feel expressed through you? Because that's how we learn more. That's how we extend our healing and our expansion into more joy, is because we learn how different people experience these things in different little nuances that we may not experience ourselves.
yeah, yeah. And I truly, that's why I love my one-on-ones, to be honest with you. Like, I
Yeah.
love one-on-ones. I stopped doing group stuff
Mhm.
because first of all, I fucking hate marketing too many things. And I'm
I feel that.
Yeah, I'm much more of an in-person group
Yeah.
setting wise. One-on-ones I can do in person or virtual, but I think this is, yeah, it's just like, don't ever let anyone tell you how how much you can impact people or not. I think it's just a matter of you recognizing what your capacity is, where you thrive the most, and just be really really honest with you, like with yourself, being like, yeah, like, I know you've told me, like, I love hosting retreats. Like, that is
Mm.
what sets my soul on fire. And I love that. I love that you're able to just say, like, yeah, this is where I'm at. And this is
Mhm.
probably, I don't know if that's like what you'll transition to do full time or whatnot, because I know that
Mhm.
your online programs are fucking amazing. But I think it's just really, really, really being honest with yourself and basically quieting all of the noise. I mean, I would say even unfollowing people that it's too
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
It's
That's what I was
too
gonna say,
much.
because it's even all the messages from the coaching industry and from the healing industry and from the helpers, right? It's like
Yeah.
there's so many things out there that it was funny because when I switched from being a therapist, I obviously had my own personal conditioning that I was shifting, even though I had been in therapy on and off my entire life. It was a very different way of approaching a deeper way of
Mm,
approaching my own self-development, right? Coming from the spiritual side. Um, but so I had a lot of deconditioning around being trained as a therapist because there was a lot of red tape and a lot of when people say this, do this, there were a lot of boxes, right?
Yeah.
In the therapy world, traditional mental health world. But then there was also a deconditioning from some of the coaching industry after a number of years in the coaching industry because it was like, you need to do things this way. This is how you're supposed to market. This is what you're supposed to say. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to throw out a bunch of fucking taglines because it's going to draw people in. I'm just going to be me, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be me. If people like what I'm putting down, those are the people I want to hang out with because I don't want anybody hiring me unless they want to sit down and hang out with me for a few days either. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like that's going to be more successful for all of us if you're really coming to somebody that you feel like, wow, she speaks my language.
Yeah.
Wow, she's been through something that feels like my journey to a T. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing. It's like even all these buzzwords and these statements, these mantras and things you see online can become a part of your rote belief system, and you still have space to sit down and decide, does that feel like me? Like the
Yeah.
core of me, or am I shifting my nervous system, all these things to align with a pattern that they say is successful, but might not be my version of success?
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely. I think that that's a great question to ask ourselves, right? Because we are being bombarded left and right of like, look at my beautiful house, look at my beautiful family. Oh, my boyfriend and I, my husband and I, we're always having this passionate love. It's like, bitch, why the fuck are you recording yourself in lingerie and your husband in bed? Like, who does that shit? I'm like, what happens after you turn off the camera? You know what I mean? Like, social media is so fucking weird. But I have to say, like, I believe that shit because that's what we want to believe, that
Yeah.
everyone else has a fucking badass life except me. So it's like we love like feeling like this victim of like, oh, I wish I had a love like uh, I remember one client say, I just want some of that good old Instagram love. And I was like, girl, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I didn't say that to her, but I was like, that doesn't exist. Like, that is
Yeah.
not real. And the people that are real are too fucking busy living their life and enjoying their relationship, their kids, their house, their things, to instead of like, hey everyone, like recording everywhere, like I'm taking a dump, I'm going to the sauna. It's like,
Mhm.
that's not happiness. That's like addiction.
Attachment. It's
Yeah,
attachment to something,
yeah,
right? And we want to release those attachments. And so I think it's, one mentor that I really appreciate. She's like, yeah, I mean, this is just how my energy goes. Sometimes I show up on here and sometimes I don't because I'm just fucking around in my life. And I'm like, exactly. Like
love,
we're seasonal humans. We're
yeah,
seasonal creatures too. And so it's like, yeah, there's times when I'm like so present in my life that I'm hardly on here. I
yeah,
talk to other people less because I'm just so present in my day to day. And
yeah,
that's what I desire. I want that presence with everyone in my life. I want that presence that when I am connected to you, I am fully present. I am not half-assing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think that when you do run into those things online, it can be, that's where the work is in terms of your own detachment. And sometimes that detachment is going to be, okay, I'm unfollowing. I don't want to see this. Sometimes it's going to be a detachment of, you know what? You do you. Good for you. Like you're loving your journey. You're living large. Enjoy it. Like absolutely.
yeah,
And this is what I choose for me. What you experience does not have to threaten what I experience, does not have to color what I experience, does not have to become a narrative of what I am meant to experience. Right?
yeah,
I get to appreciate what you're experiencing at the same time that I allow any little seeds within that to catalyze what I desire to enrich my own life and my own being.
yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's.
So is there anything else that we want to share? I'm looking at our notes here that we wrote down. But is there anything else that you want to leave people with before we close up?
I think it's just inviting them to, and I know this is like a phrase that's thrown around a lot in the spiritual world, the personal development world, but like choose to be present in your life,
Yeah.
and you'll start to see how much how abundant you actually are. And once you start shifting from lack to abundance, which is what we really are, like we're just made believe that we're not. Um, I think that that is a big, big key for someone's. life to shift, because I was even talking to a friend today and I was like, I've been really debating whether or not I want to take on more one-on-one clients because my life is just fucking amazing.
Mhm.
And I was like, I think, I'm opening up to the possibility of having three more,
Mm.
because if I added too much, I think at this moment it would feel like a lot would have to shift. And I'm really happy that the majority of my schedule is brunch, dinner with my
Mhm.
boyfriend, working out, all of a like every other day because it's fucking hot outside. And so just like lounging and resting, and like I'm in an era where I'm like really soft and I'm slowing down and I'm just
Yeah.
really enjoying my life, going to the beach, doing all these things. And then every day I'm just like, wow, this is my life. And I it was something I once dreamed of and now it's a reality. So I think that this is the invitation for people to start making their own magic and realizing that they can do this through questions, they can do this through journaling, they can do this through like decision making. Like it's all, you are the director, you are the author, and you get to say what flies and what doesn't in your world.
Yeah, yeah, and like Anna was saying earlier, even like any kind of heaviness or trauma or narratives that come forward, obviously check in with where you are with it, but it doesn't mean you have to dismiss or reject that or quote unquote get rid of it. That
Yeah.
can exist and you can still find your joy. You can still choose your magic. You can still choose to live because that will automatically catalyze. Like what I was picturing was this like, this kind of knot that we have in our bodies when it comes
Mm,
to trauma or experiences of heaviness like that, right? And so
yeah.
we can say, okay, let's go back and keep trying to untie the knot. Let's keep going back in and trying to. So you're like taking one part out like this, right? Like little by little. Or I can actually just keep holding, like I still have something tethered to this knot. There's still like a thread or a string attached to this. And I'm just walking forward. And as
Mm-hmm.
I walk forward, sometimes it might tug a little bit at me. I might feel a little bit of that resistance. And I'm just like, okay, creating more space for that, allowing more openness for that, for more energy to flow back into this, to open that. And as I move forward, it starts to loosen. And so I think that's a really beautiful way of showing how when we live our lives, she's moving the energy, showing how when we live our lives in the joy, despite what we also might be carrying, it
Yeah.
starts to loosen. And that healing can happen that way. We don't have to dive into all the deepest, darkest shit and
Yeah.
peel back every goddamn layer. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yawning for me is like a confirmation. My body's
yeah.
saying like, yes, yes. So I absolutely agree. There's no reason why you cannot live your most beautiful life. It's not like I'm fully healed. What the hell is that?
Right.
Right. So yeah, I mean, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I
Mhm.
think just for people to digest and be
Yep,
able to process and integrate on their own, this is a good place to stop. What do you
I
think?
agree. This is perfect. It's complete, and we will hand it over to you guys to share in the comments whatever comes forward for you. Any questions you have, you can reach out to us individually. If you have questions about this, if you desire support, as we both said, we really appreciate being in curious connection with other human beings. I think that if we could all have that approach, we'll have much more clarity and discernment as to who we invite into our hearts, and into our worlds going forward. So, thank you, honey, for being here with me.
Thank you for inviting me. Well, I invited myself, but at the end of the day, you accept.
it, we're here, and we're both committed to this. All right, I love you, everyone. We'll see you soon. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.